Early 8th century, after an attempt to storm Constantinople, which was rather unsuccessful, a period of peace began between the Umayyad Caliphate and the Byzantine Empire. The fact is that in 680, a bloody civil war began in the Umayyad Caliphate. Immersed in the struggle for power over the Umayyad Caliphate, the warring parties, of course, did not think about repeating the attempt to capture the capital of the Byzantine Empire, since they faced more pressing problems in the form of preserving their own lives and finding a way to gain power over the caliphate by defeating their rivals. Moreover, during the civil war in the Umayyad Caliphate, the Byzantine Empire was able not only to restore its strength, but also to replenish its treasury. The fact is that during the civil war, the Umayyads feared a stab in the back from the Byzantine Empire, so they were forced to pay for peace with a generous tribute in favor of the Byzantine Emperor. In addition, the Byzantine Emperor managed to agree on the establishment of joint governance over Cyprus, Armenia, and Caucasian Iberia. Thus, the income received from these regions was divided between the Umayyads and the Byzantine Empire. This continued until 682, when the Umayyads won a decisive victory in the civil war and regained control of the entire territory of the Caliphate. As soon as all the opponents of the Umayyads were defeated, they of course stopped paying tribute to the Byzantine Empire. In turn, the Byzantine Emperor Justinian II, who was accustomed to replenishing the treasury through tribute received from the Umayyads, did not like this scenario. Trying to force the Umayyads to resume paying tribute, the Byzantine Emperor immediately began military operations against the Caliphate. However, the Byzantines underestimated the military power of the Caliphate, so the fighting did not develop as the emperor had planned. Despite the efforts made, the Byzantine Empire was unable to achieve a decisive victory over the Caliphate and force it to resume paying tribute. For the sake of fairness, it should be mentioned that the fighting was limited, since both armies did not involve large forces in the battles. The sluggish confrontation between the Byzantine Empire and the Umayyad Caliphate lasted for several years, and neither side could turn the tide of hostilities in its favor. This continued until 695, when an uprising took place in Constantinople, as a result of which Emperor Justinian II was overthrown, after which his nose was cut off and his tongue was cut into two parts. From this moment on, a period of instability and struggle for power began in the Byzantine Empire, as a result of which the confrontation with the Umayyad Caliphate faded into the background. The Arab Caliphate, of course, took advantage of the instability in the Byzantine Empire, which included Armenia and Caucasian Iberia, which had previously been under joint control. However, the Umayyads were in no hurry to start a large-scale war against the Byzantine Empire, limiting themselves only to raids with the aim of plundering the border territories. This continued until 712, when the struggle for power within the Byzantine Empire led to the partial destruction of the defensive system of the Byzantine army. The weakening of the Byzantine defense allowed Arab troops to carry out large raids deep into the territory of Asia Minor. It was from this time that the Umayyads began to think about taking advantage of the serious weakening of Byzantium caused by internal problems, striking at the very heart of the empire, and again trying to capture Constantinople. However, despite having plans to try to capture Constantinople again, the Arabs were in no hurry to begin preparations for an attack on the Byzantine capital. The situation changed in 715 when Sulayman became the new caliph. Upon coming to power, he immediately began to draw up a plan for an attack on Constantinople, since he perfectly understood that the Byzantine Empire, mired in civil strife, would not be able to provide serious resistance. The caliph's efforts were not in vain, and he was soon able to gather impressive forces north of the city of Aleppo on the Dabiq plain. When the Arab army was completing preparations for the upcoming campaign, it became obvious that the caliph himself could not lead it due to illness. Therefore, it was decided to entrust the attack on the capital of the Byzantine Empire to the caliph's brother, Maslama Abdul Malik. The preparation of the Arab army and navy for the upcoming campaign against Constantinople did not go unnoticed. Understanding very well exactly where the caliphate was planning to strike, the Byzantine Emperor Anastasius II hastily sent an embassy to Damascus to negotiate peace and thereby avoid a large-scale war with the Umayyad Caliphate. However, the Byzantine Emperor objectively assessed the situation and understood that it would be very difficult to agree on peace when the enemy's army and fleet were already ready to set out on a campaign. So he decided not to sit idly by and began to prepare Constantinople for defense. The Byzantine emperor ordered the repair of all the fortifications of the city and the deployment of catapults and other siege weapons to Constantinople. Also, by order of the emperor, food supplies were delivered to the city, which, according to contemporary testimony, could meet the needs of the population and the city's garrison for at least 3 years in advance. Since, of course, it was not possible to conclude a peace treaty with the Arab Caliphate, the Byzantine emperor decided to act proactively. He was well aware that the Arabs would need a fleet to deliver their army to the vicinity of Constantinople. In order to thwart the enemy's plans, Anastasius II assembled his own fleet and sent it to the shores of the Umayyad Caliphate, with the goal of defeating the Arab fleet with the help of Greek fire, thereby hoping to thwart the Caliphate's plan to transfer its army to the vicinity of Constantinople. In principle, the Byzantine emperor calculated everything correctly, and his plan could have been disrupted or at least postponed for a long time, the attack on Constantinople, but the unexpected happened. The Byzantine fleet, having reached Rhodes, rebelled and killed its commander, John the Deacon, and sailed toward the city of Adramyttium. Soon the rebellious fleet was joined by the theme Opsicius, who also rebelled against the authority of the emperor and proclaimed the tax collector Theodosius the new emperor. Faced with an uprising and having lost almost his entire fleet, Emperor Anastasius was forced to distract himself from the impending Arab invasion and try to restore order in his own state. Anastasius gathered an army and crossed to Bithynia, planning to defeat the rebels and restore order in the empire. Meanwhile, the rebel fleet began to attack Constantinople, whose garrison was seriously weakened. The rebel attacks on Constantinople ended at the end of the summer, when the city gates were opened to them. Thus, the city fell into the hands of the rebels almost without a fight. Anastasius received news of the fall of Constantinople while in Nicaea, after which he began to have serious problems as he began to rapidly lose supporters. A few weeks later, realizing the hopelessness of the situation, Anastasius was forced to renounce the throne and agree to enter a monastery. Theodosius was proclaimed the new emperor, but the rulers of the themes Anatolic and Armeniacon were in no hurry to recognize his power. Thus, the Byzantine Empire found itself on the brink of a large-scale civil war, which the Arabs rushed to take advantage of. The Caliph, having received news of the brewing civil war in the Byzantine Empire, decided to change his plan of attack on Constantinople. If he initially planned to reach the capital of the Byzantine Empire by sea, now he decided to launch an offensive towards Constantinople by land, since he did not expect to encounter serious resistance from the Byzantine army, which, due to the brewing civil war, had ceased to be a single whole. In September 715, the vanguard of the Arab army began an offensive, advancing through Cilicia into Asia Minor. Having not encountered any serious resistance along the way, the Arab army occupied the Lulon fortress, in the vicinity of which it spent the winter. Already at the beginning of 716, the army of the Umayyad Caliphate continued its advance deep into the territory of the Byzantine Empire. During the offensive, the Arabs tried to establish connections with the rulers of the themes Anatolic and Armeniacon, who did not recognize the authority of the emperor, who, although they did not openly side with the Caliphate, did not interfere with the movement of his army towards Constantinople. After some time, the army of the Arab Caliphate reached the environs of the Amorium fortress, by which time the strategist of the theme, Anatolic Leo the Isaurian, had managed to agree with the Arabs on joint actions against the emperor. Therefore, when the Arab vanguard surrounded the fortress, he invited the local garrison to recognize Leo the Isaurian as the new emperor and stop resistance. The local garrison agreed to recognize Leo the Isaurian as the new emperor and allow his soldiers to enter the fortress. After Leo the Isaurian and his men found themselves in the fortress, he unexpectedly refused to open the gates to the Arabs. By this time, the Arab vanguard was experiencing serious problems with food, so realizing that they had been deceived by the Arabs, they howled and were forced to turn around and start moving in the opposite direction. On the way home, the Arab vanguard met the main army of the Umayyad Caliphate and told of the betrayal of Leo the Isaurian. In this situation, the Arabs were forced to change their plans for attacking Constantinople. The united Arab armies returned to Cilicia, planning to resupply food supplies in the spring and launch a new offensive against Constantinople. Meanwhile, Leo the Isaurian began his campaign against Constantinople, planning to seize power. Without encountering serious resistance on his way, Leo the Isaurian, at the head of a small army, soon managed to reach the coast of the Sea of Marmara and capture the city of Nicomedia. It should be mentioned that the Byzantine army was in no hurry to defend Emperor Theodosius, who in the spring of 717 was forced to recognize Leo the Isaurian as the new emperor and retire to a monastery. To strengthen his power, Leo the Isaurian appointed the strategist of the theme Armeniakon as Kuropalats and married his daughter Anna to him. At the same time, the new emperor understood perfectly well that the Arabs would certainly organize a new campaign against Constantinople, so he began hasty preparations for the defense of the city. In turn, the commander of the Arab army, Maslama Abdul-Malik, closely monitored the situation in the Byzantine Empire. Having learned that the new emperor, Leo the Isaurian, was able to restore order in the empire in a fairly short period of time, he realized that the Arab army would not be able to reach Constantinople by land without encountering serious resistance. So he decided to return to the original plan, which involved using the fleet to transport the Arab army to the vicinity of the Byzantine capital. The Arab fleet with an army on board set out on a campaign, and already in the summer of 717, Arab troops began landing in Thrace. After the army of the Umayyad Caliphate landed on the shore, it began a rapid movement towards Constantinople, devastating everything in its path. Soon the Arabs reached the outskirts of the capital of the Byzantine Empire, the garrison of which had time to prepare for defense and naturally did not plan to surrender. In order to completely block the city from the land side and deprive it of the opportunity to receive food and reinforcements, the Arab army erected two walls, which provided reliable protection for the Arab camp and guaranteed a complete blockade of Constantinople from the land side. As for the size of the opposing armies, according to available data, under the command of Maslama Abdul-Malik, there were about 120,000 soldiers, while the garrison of Constantinople numbered about 30,000 soldiers. These figures are clearly overestimated, but nevertheless it can be said with confidence that the numerical advantage was on the side of the Umayyad army. Realizing full well that the Byzantine garrison of Constantinople would not be able to defeat the Arab army in open battle, the emperor offered the Arabs a ransom, but they ended up. Meanwhile, the Arab fleet also reached the outskirts of Constantinople and blocked the city from the sea, thus completely depriving the local garrison of the opportunity to receive reinforcements and replenish food supplies. In addition, Arab troops were landed in the vicinity of Galata, thanks to which a complete blockade of the capital of the Byzantine Empire was ensured. At this time, the Byzantine fleet took refuge in the Golden Horn Bay under the protection of the chain, not daring to go out into the open sea. However, even despite its overwhelming numerical advantage, the army of the Umayyad Caliphate did not dare to carry out an assault. The fact is that on the land side, the city was protected by two rows of city walls, which the Arabs could not overcome. Therefore, the commander of the Arab army developed a rather daring plan that could bring him a decisive victory. According to this plan, several Arab ships were supposed to approach the walls of Constantinople under cover of darkness near the chain, blocking the entrance to the bay. Since in this place the fortifications were not as powerful as on the land side. Then, having captured part of the city wall, the Arab landing was supposed to lower the chain and let the Arab fleet into the bay. Unfortunately for the Arabs, things did not go according to plan even before implementation began. When the ships reached the positions from which they were to begin the night attack, a strong wind arose which carried them to the chain, blocking the path to the bay. The Byzantine fleet took advantage of this and burned the enemy ships with Greek fire. This event raised the morale of the Byzantine garrison and at the same time seriously reduced the morale of the Arab fleet, which realized its defenselessness against Greek fire. It should be mentioned that the crews of many Arab ships consisted of Christian Egyptians, some of whom defected to the side of their co-religionists. It was from the defectors that the Byzantine emperor learned about the decline in the morale of the Arab fleet and decided to act immediately. Soon the Byzantine fleet left the Golden Horn Bay and unexpectedly attacked the Arab fleet blockading the city. The Arabs turned out to be completely unprepared for the attack, which is why, having noticed the enemy fleet having formed battle formations, they were unable to organize a defense. The sight of Arab ships burning after attacks by Greek fire caused panic in the ranks of the Arab fleet. Having suffered serious losses, the remnants of the Arab fleet left the vicinity of Constantinople and dropped anchor near the eastern coast of the Sea of Marmara. Thus, the Arab army in the vicinity of Constantinople lost the opportunity to receive food by sea in a timely manner. The problems of the Arabs did not end there, since the Byzantine emperor was able to negotiate help with the Bulgarian king. Bulgarian troops began to destroy the Arab troops who were leaving the camp in search of food, and after some time the Bulgarian army arrived in the vicinity of Constantinople and blocked the Arab camp. Thus, the army of the Umayyad Caliphate was caught between a rock and a hard place, and food supplies in the Arab camp were rapidly running out. The Arabs did not dare to launch an assault on Constantinople, since in this case there was a risk that the Bulgarian army would attack them from the rear. Meanwhile, the Arab army, which was essentially inactive, began to suffer serious losses from hunger. It became obvious that the siege of the city could end in a real disaster, and in order to avoid such a scenario, on August 15, 718, after 13 months of siege, the Arab army boarded ships and left the outskirts of Constantinople. But this was not the end of the Arabs' problems. The Arab fleet, not having time to leave the Sea of Marmara, was caught in a storm and lost a large number of ships. Thus, the siege of Constantinople was extremely unsuccessful, and the loss of a large number of ships and troops seriously weakened the Umayyad Caliphate. However, the Byzantine Empire still failed to take advantage of the situation and return the territories previously occupied by the Arabs, since the empire was focused on solving internal problems. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel and click on the bell so you don't miss new videos.